Hey, Wolfpack Nation. You already know that when we talk about the great traditions of NC State athletics, Amedeo's Italian restaurant is right at the heart of it. Since 1963, it's been the go-to spot for generations of Pack fans. The walls tell the story, the food seals the deal, and every visit feels like part of the family. Whether it's pre-game pasta, post-game celebrations, or just a night out on Western Boulevard, Amedeo's delivers every single time. Great people, great plates, and pure NC State pride. Stop by Amedeo's, a true Wolfpack original.
NC pork, good for the plate, great for the state.
The North Carolina Sports Network presents This Was Then. Exploring North Carolina's rich sports history with Tim Peeler and Todd McGee. Presented by Amedeo's Italian Restaurant and Sammy's Tap and Grill. Episode 6, a look back at the 1981 Big Four rivalry college football game between the North Carolina Tar Heels and the NC State Wolfpack, with former Wolfpack assistant coach Rick Minter.
Hey everybody, this is Tim Peeler for the This Was Then podcast. It's State Carolina week in college football here in the state of North Carolina, so that's obviously something we here at the North Carolina Sports Network are eager to talk about, eager to see. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about a game that always comes up when NC State, North Carolina get ready to play. And that was the game in 1981 when NC State, playing at Carter Finley Stadium, took a 10-0 lead in the first half, shut down North Carolina. Both teams were playing really well at that time. In the 10 games that they'd played up to that, there was only one loss. Carolina came in 5-0. NC State was 4-1. North Carolina was ranked number 4 in the country. They had beaten East Carolina, Miami of Ohio, Boston College, Georgia Tech, and Wake Forest. Really one of the best teams in the history of UNC football. NC State was playing under second-year head coach Monte Kiffin, came into the game 4-1, like I said, and there was some optimism in Raleigh, some things saying, you know what, we just might be able to pull this off. We got a great running back, freshman tailback, Joe McIntosh, and they were shredding up ACC defenses at the time. There was optimism. There was a buzz in the stadium. It was one of those classic games. 56,000 people at Carter Finley. The State Fair was going on across the street. Just an amazing weekend for football.
And I remember that game well because I was a freshman at NC State at the time. So this was my first taste of the State Carolina game. And we were all excited. The game was 10-0 at halftime. State had made a great touchdown pass on a great fake by quarterback Toll Avery that fooled everybody. But the game changed, however, right at the second half when Coach Kiffin called for a surprise onside kick to start the second half. The Hills recovered and marched 51 yards for a score that sparked UNC to a 21-10 comeback victory.
So joining us today to talk about that very play, about what you guys saw in the defensive room leading up the 2 weeks before that, because they had a bye before that game, and what you saw and why you thought that was going to be the perfect play to pull off to begin the second half. Coach Rick Minter, who is the senior defensive analyst now for the Los Angeles Chargers after being a longtime coach, including the 7-year head coach at Cincinnati. He lives kind of a dad's dream. He gets to go to work every single day with his son, Jesse, the Chargers defensive coordinator. But he's been a football lifetime coach. And so we just wanted to talk to you about that play because you had some pretty good people on that staff. Why don't you tell us first off about that staff that Coach Kiffin put together?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. when Bobby Purcell, a friend of both of ours, reached out and said, "You're going to be calling," told me what it was about. I mean, this is not something that I haven't talked to other people about down through the years, because I'm a great storyteller when it comes to the history and the past of my career and different stops along the way. And I certainly enjoyed my stay there in Raleigh. But we had a great staff at that time, little to be known what that staff would go ahead and eventually find in their careers. Monte Kiffin, one of the greatest ever, passed away a year ago, was one of the greatest defense coordinators ever in the history of the NFL. Won the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. Pete Carroll, of course, the record speaks for itself. Greg Robinson, rest his soul, had a great career, two-time Super Bowl defensive coordinator with the Denver Broncos. The staff was just full of people on that in that group that just went on to accomplish great things. Like you said, Tim, we had the open date. So back in those days, you didn't give the players off a whole lot of time. So we're practicing a little bit the open week, and we're going to practice game week. And back then, you didn't have probably what we call now a special teams coordinator. I mean, like the defensive staff probably covered this phase, the offensive staff covered that phase. Maybe a guy was a captain of that unit off each staff, that type of thing. So it was kind of a collective effort. And that's what got Pete Carroll and Greg Robinson in the film room studying Carolina's kickoff return unit. So I guess on defense, we had the kickoff coverage. That makes sense, all the defensive kids on that side. So they started looking at it, and lo and behold, if you study all of Carolina's kick returns, one of their tackles, I want to say their left tackle, be the right side on our side, always dropped out real fast, just kind of opened up a big hole. Like he was anxious to run back and, get involved in the returns the moment the kick was made. And so they started thinking about it because we probably down inside didn't really know if we could beat Carolina. We were going to probably be the underdog. They had a great team. Lawrence Taylor and all the boys over there were great, great players. So we probably were finding ways to steal scores and possessions and this type of thing. So Pete and Greg kind of came up with that idea. Then they presented it to Monty, and when it's all said and done, the end result of it. But as it all said and done, it goes back to saying, well, did we get scouted or skunked in practice, doing all that practice in the week before, kind of an open practice field area down there by the Whitaker Brown and all that type of thing. But so we enter the game, and it was going to be a plan that after we scored the first time of the game, whenever it was, we're going to pull off this onside kick, the surprise. All right, so if you go back and play the game, we did make a touchdown with the play fake from Toll down to Rufus Friday, I believe it was, the tight end, walk-on tight end. And the place went crazy, and we got an unsportsmanlike penalty, I think, for like excessive celebration, if I don't recall. And it pushed us back. The field position changed, so we'd have been backed up, kicking off. So no, we can't do it now. We can't do it now. And then somewhere along the way, I don't know which happened first. I guess the touchdown happened first. And then near the half, we had a drive going where we got a field goal. That's what made it 10-0 going into halftime. But we said, no, we're not going to do it. It's just a little bit of seconds left before the halftime. So that left it to be discussed at the halftime. And yet nobody probably ever thought, maybe ourselves included, we're going to be up 10-0 on these guys at the half. So we go into the locker room and we take care of our normal adjustments. And, we'd been playing extremely well. So we didn't have a lot to talk about what they were going to do and not do. And then Pete was on the sideline as a defense coordinator. Of course, Monty, the head coach, on the sideline. And Greg Robinson, the D-line or the linebacker coach, and I'm the outside linebacker coach. We were both press box coaches. So we have to leave a few minutes early to head on walk up the side of Carter Finley, up the grass, and then into the back, get into the press box, go up the elevators, get up into that old wooden box there.
The world's slowest elevator, we should interject.
Of course, we now know they've got great facilities. But on the way up the hill, I talked to Greg, and Greg and Pete were college roommates, so they're real close, good friends. And I said, Greg, I don't like this. He says, what do you mean? I said, I don't like the thought of us onside in this thing. We got the friggin' number 4 team in the nation down 10-0. Let's just keep playing the way we're playing. And he didn't say much. We got all the way up. We walked up, got up the elevator, got in there, got parked into our seats in the press box. And I won't ever forget this, rest his soul. He turns and looks at me with this look. And Greg was a very handsome, good-looking man. And he looks at me and he says, do you know what, Rick? You are right. We don't need to be doing this. We don't need to be doing this. And so about this time now, the teams come out onto the field, they're onto the sideline. And so Greg's got our headsets on. I got my headsets on. And I will never forget this. He starts calling out, Pete, Pete, like, put your headsets on, Pete. He says, Pete, Pete. Pete finally, Pete Carroll. I mean, he hasn't changed a lick in 50 years, right? But he still bops around laughing, jovial guy. And he Pete gets, or Greg gets Pete. He says, Pete, hey, listen. He says, Rick and I talked about this up here. This onside kick is a bad idea. He says, too late, brother. Kiff told the team before we're coming out, this is what we're going to do. We said, oh, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. Well, lo and behold, as history would tell you, we line up out there. That left tackle didn't move an inch, okay? And that ball squibbed over there, and they got on it bigger than you please. And then they, you always say what momentum swings, the outcome of the game. They went in and made adjustments. Carolina's offense did. And they had the great tailbacks back then, 2 or 3 of them. And they started running this sprint draw type play against our underfront defense. And it just started scheming us a little bit. So they decided to highlight that play, and they just ran the ball right down our throat and made it, of course, 10-7. And then the next 2 scores that they got, if I'm not mistaken, one or both came off of block punts or something in the kicking game that set up real short fields. So before you know it, we go from 10-0 down 14-7, eventually down 21-7, and still didn't play terrible defense with the field position in there, but it'll always go down as the event that turned the game, and it turned our season, because we were 4-1 at the time, now 4-2, and every Monday after that, actually Sunday afternoon after that, Monty would have to go to the team and say, now listen, we've only lost 1 game in a row now. I mean, that's no big deal. The next Sunday, hey, we've only lost 2 games in a row. Okay, nothing, no sweat, no sweat. We never won a game the rest of the year. We were 4-7 after starting off 4-1, and most people, Carolina and state people, trace it all the way back to the fate of that onside kick is what turned our season, turned the tide. They went on to have a good year, but no, the state Carolina rivalry is unique. It's backyard brawl, and I was privileged to be a part of it for 3 years, and had some great memories. I got tons of stories about that game, but that was a ill-fated decision. I still believe to this day it was the wrong decision to do. Monty is not here on earth to defend himself, nor is Greg. And I'll see Pete a week from Sunday over in Vegas. Again, I'll remind him about that we had this conversation. But no, that was one of those moments in time that I'll never forget, but I have told this story to many of people.
The perfect Wolfpack pregame or postgame spot this season is Sammy's Tap and Grill in West Raleigh. Just minutes from NC State, Sammy's brings more than 65 TVs, a huge menu, 44 draft beers, and an atmosphere built for Wolfpack fans. Burgers, jumbo wings, cold drafts, and all the energy of the pack. Whether you're watching the kickoff, tip-off, face-off, or just gathering with friends, that's where you want to be. Swing by 2235 Avent Ferry Road, Raleigh, and make Sammy's Tap and Grill your Wolfpack game day headquarters. Sammy's, presenting partner of the This Was Then podcast and complete coverage of the NC State Wolfpack on the North Carolina Sports Network.
This is Tim Peeler on the This Was Then podcast with my good friend Todd McGee, and we're talking about the 1981 NC State North Carolina game as we get ready to go into another NC State North Carolina game. But I think everybody wants to know, I wrote lots of things last year when Coach Kiffin passed away. What was it like to play for a guy who jumped out of a helicopter, who rode a horse on the campus, who fought in the ring with Joe Frazier at Reynolds Coliseum, somebody who poured his heart and soul into getting attention for his program,
Yeah.
doing things with somebody, a guy named Jim Valvano, who seemed like they were always out to try to outdo each other. What was it like coaching for a guy like that?
Well, you got to remember, I came up as a grad assistant at Arkansas. I worked under Monty in 78, joined him in Carolina December 79 when he was named the head coach. And of course, Pete Carroll came in from Ohio State, who had been with Monty in 77 at Arkansas, Greg Robinson being the roommate of Pete. So the whole defensive staff was just coming from the Arkansas background, and that was fun. But I remember the first, remember those Wolfpack Club meetings that the head coach has to go do all around the state during the month of May, like
Yes.
20 or 30 of them, around the different state. All the coaches are out recruiting, and he's out doing all the circuit. I was at that meeting one time when I forget where it was, what part of the state it was in, but I remember that Wolfpack Club meeting that I happened to be in attendance when he said something to the effect of, uh, because he'd already done the Lone Ranger thing now. That was around the spring game of our initial year.
Yes.
Okay. That came out of nowhere that he was going to do this. Rode across campus, had all the players out there in the forum area, that patio area out there. They had the band out there. But I was at that Wolfpack Club meeting when he says, "Hey, you know how Monty talked? It was like, hey, if you thought that Lone Ranger was something, what if I jump out of an airplane?" It first was an airplane. He said, "What if I parachute out of an airplane down to the pep rally on the Friday night before the opener this fall? How would you like that?" I mean, he's just garnering attention. And so as it got nearer and nearer, now we go through training camp. Now we're getting to the Friday of the pep rally that's going to precede the game on Saturday. And we still don't know what he's going to do. So all of our families, our wives, our family, we're all over at that pep rally wondering what the heck is Monty going to do? And we were looking up in the sky thinking, is there going to be an airplane fly over before we know it? And here comes Monty. And before you know it, here comes this friggin' helicopter over the horizon there. And Monty's got this wolf head attached to his leg, sticking it out the side of that airplane, that helicopter, it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the helicopter hovers down to about 10 or 15 feet above the ground, and Monty jumps out, undoes the parachute, and what a letdown. I mean, everybody thinks he's going to see Monte Kiffin parachute onto the field, and then he has to go in there and take all his garb off and then try to get there had to be 10,000 people out there waiting to see if Monty was going to do this this airplane parachute, and it turned into being kind of a helicopter dud. But then weeks later, it was when we got ready to play Carolina that first year. It was when we were sitting in a staff meeting on Thursday morning or Friday morning, when the SID comes in and whispers something into Monty's ear. And it was about a promotional guy named Joe Frazier was promoting a product or a fight. And he was going to be in town, and he wanted to know if he could come by and visit with the team on a Friday afternoon, or some connection like that, or, hey, he's in town. Is there anything you want to do? That's when Monty's brain started turning and turning and turning. He says, "Hey, I got an idea. Why don't I just spar Joe Frazier at the pep rally on Friday night?" So this just came out of the blue, and they put that thing together, and that was a big to-deal do. Now they put the rink up in there in the Reynolds. Lots of people came out. He's coming in. He's got all this help. I mean, he played it up big, but it's how do you make that big that you played it up so big? You're going to spar with Joe Frazier. Well, that ain't going to happen, right? So he gets up in the ring and he starts playing and playing, and Joe starts off getting pom poms and kind of playing with him with pom pom, because Joe Frazier don't know what the heck he's going to do. And then all of a sudden, Monty slaps him upside the head. And Joe stops right there and goes over. It's probably all planned, but he goes to the corner and puts his gloves on. I mean, his real gloves on, and then comes back and they really go at it a little bit. But still, it was kind of a build up to a little bit of a letdown. And then, of course, we got beat the next day when we played those guys. But it was weird. I mean, Monty was so full of life and so full of energy. He coached that way his entire life, all the way up until the end, where he had the same privilege I did at the very end of his career, and that was he worked for Lane, his kid, who's now doing extremely well in college football. So we both kind of live parallel lives.
Well, Coach, I remember listening to going back to the 81 game. I remember listening to the post game show on the radio as I was trying to get out of Carter Finley, which was jam packed with State Fair people and state fans. And Coach Kiffin was almost in tears as he talked about that onside kick. He was so certain that was going to work. And I remember him saying that guy had not stayed home all year.
That's
And
right.
then,
Well,
he,
that led us to believe that did we get scouted and skunked on that with our preparation? Because you got to practice that, you got to be over there, down there on the practice fields inside the track back in those days, and practice that. And you just wonder with the intensity of the rivalry, where we literally scouted that they get the heads up and then to make sure that they guard against it. Because that tackle, I saw the film. The kid had bailed out every single kickoff. And so I understand the rationale. I would have just never done it based on the fact we had them up 10-0. And we missed some surprise opportunities in the first half if you want to try it. But you go to halftime with the number 4 ranked team in the country, don't do anything to try to lose the game. And I'm sure, Pete and Monty both regretted it afterwards. But it was there to start with. And then, boy, when that ball was kicked, that guy did not move. And that's the moment we said, you know what, we've been scouted. We've been skunked a little bit to head that disaster off. But all in all, I mean, I remember the State Carolina, the first year we played those guys was over there. And
Right.
I'm in the box with same Greg, same staff. And here's all these good players out there. And he says something about Lawrence Taylor. I said, who is Lawrence Taylor? He says, he looks at me like I'm crazy. He says, you don't know who Lawrence Taylor is? I said, no, I'm worried about their offensive guys. I don't know anything about their defensive guys. He says, well, he just happens to be like the greatest outside linebacker in college football right now. And that was the game where Lawrence came across the line, hurdled the blockers on a sprint out pass from Toll Avery, just hurdled them and then sacked Toll Avery. I said, oh, I know who he is now. But and that was the same game that Greg and I again were up in the press box. And I was the young guy on the staff at that time, like 25, 26. And I was always in charge of food in terms of walking down the hall, searching out the press box and trying to get the, different food snacks for the coaches to munch on during the game. And I came back with a big box of chicken wings. And so we start munching on these chicken wings, and we were in an open air box over there in Carter Finley. It was kind of a dumpy little place over there on the edge where they put the visiting coaches. I started chewing on those chicken bones, and I just flipped them out into the crowd, right? Just flipped them out right out of the press box, lands down in the crowd. Do it 2 or 3 times just to be funny. And on Monday morning, this is Pete Carroll and Greg Robinson to the hilt. On Monday morning, I'm sitting in, we shared offices. Pete's right across this desk from me, just like I've got a shared office in here right now. He's over there. Greg's way over there on the other side. And I come into my office at 8 o'clock in the morning and look on my desk, and here's a professional envelope from Willis Casey, the AD. Okay, I open up the envelope, and it's a letterhead, it's typed, it's everything. And it says, it has come to our attention about the misbehavior of the coaching staff of such poor sportsmanship over at Carter Finley, over at their stadium over there in Chapel Hill. And it went on and on and on about how they'll get to the bottom of it. They'll do an investigation and blah, blah, blah. And I'm still looking around. I'm looking at Greg and I'm looking at Pete, and they got their heads down. They're not doing anything. So I finally just went back, and I'm so young and gullible, and I'm thinking, what the hell, I'm thinking. And they just looked at me and started busting out laughing because they just broke my chops on that. Because they wrote the letter, had Betty type it up down the hallway. But no, it just brings back lots of memories as we're talking even right now about the State Carolina and our time in Raleigh together.
Getting hit by a chicken wing in a football stadium, that's just like going to a NASCAR event.
That was very poor on my part, but we were probably getting beat and we were frustrated. But no, I tell you what, that was a great program. And, I finally got back down to state when I was at Kentucky, when Mike Archer and what's his name, the D coordinator over there, Archer was working with Georgia Tech guy. Or no, he was visiting, and we're all friends.
Okay.
I brought down my Kentucky staff in 2011 or 12 to visit Mike Archer and those guys. And that's when I went into the new facility, the more recent facility work now out in Carter Finley. It's changed drastically. It's all for the better. Bobby Purcell was our young recruiting coordinator guy when back in 80, 81. We got fired. Not Bo Ryan, but
Tom Reed.
Yeah, Tom Reed from Miami of Ohio followed us, and he kept Bobby and promoted him into this recruiting coordinator role. And of course, we all took off, went our different directions. And Bobby, of course, has made a career out of being there. He stayed on as recruiting, and then eventually into administration, and then he eventually replaced Charlie Bryant over at the Wolfpack Club.
Right.
And now he's retired. So it shows you how old I'm getting, but no, Bobby and all the guys over there, it's just a great place. I remember coaching Dave Horning. Dave was, I was probably only a year or two older than Dave. He was a fourth or fifth year senior when I came in and coached him, and I was probably 25 years old. So to this day, I'd say Dave is pushing 70 right now. And Dave Shelton, Ricky Etheridge, those were our guys, playing outside linebacker. Bubba Green, I think Bubba passed away.
Yep. About 4 years ago.
What's unique, though, Mike Quick was on the team, right? Star wide receiver. And I coached with the Eagles 2013, 14, 15. And Mike, of course, still has a very prominent role with the Eagles. He's kind of their color analyst on the radio and very close friends and connected to Jeffrey Lurie, the owner. And Mike and I reconnected when I took the job with the Eagles, and we stayed good friends there for the 3 years. So there's always been a touch of NC State. Bobby and I have stayed in good touch down through the years, but those great memories. And we lived out in Cary back when it was probably 25, 30,000 people. Now it's probably 100. And it's a beautiful area. I never have returned there to truly visit, but it's one of my favorite areas at that time.
Todd and I both live in Cary now, and it is a different place than it was when you lived there. But connect with you on a couple of quick things. John Tenuta, I believe, is who you're thinking about.
Yeah, that's right, John.
The defensive guru for many, many years, worked here. Just like Coach Kiffin, who made his name in the NFL as a defensive guru. And you mentioned Lane, who's done a great job through the years, has a really good team now. You told me something about Lane last night when we were talking before this. Talk a little bit about your memories of Lane as a kid.
My memories with Lane started when I was a GA at Arkansas for Monte Kiffin, and Lane was like 4 years old, and married at the time. One of the job of a GA is to take care of the D coordinator and his wife. Like if they want to go to dinner, it says, "Hey, can you babysit?" So I babysat Lane Kiffin. I guess I can claim that as a fame now, as good as he is. That we took care of him and his young sister there for a couple of different nights. But and then when of course that was in 78, and then we get back together 80, 81, 82 there, and now Lane is what, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. But you always saw it, I mean, I raised my son Jesse the same way. I mean, there's so much an advantage to be a coach's kid, of the things that you get exposed to, and the familiarity and the insight and the workings of college and or professional football. And Lane's grown into a great coach. I mean, he's the hottest name in coaching right now, as he's kind of holding all the cards for all these coaching moves out there right now over in the Southeast. And I still think he could be, maybe will someday again, be a great NFL head coach, because he got that chance early. It was a failed effort, but now he's accomplished so many good things, and he might be one of the best offensive minds out there. And he'll get it going wherever he is, whether he stays at Ole Miss, whether he goes to LSU, which is where I think he would end up going, or Florida. He'll win wherever he goes. He is rightly built for the new age college football. And we like it or not like it, it's NIL and money and portal but Lane is at the front of that. I mean, he's your all-time Twitter coach. I mean, he is a new age guy that knows how to connect, and never too old to be a good mentor to all of his young players. And I see it in him. He got it honestly. Monty was a very, very caring coach for his players all the way through his life, whether it be NFL players or former college players. He was absolute a player's guy. And I think Lane's the same way. I know Lane misses his dad tremendously because I think Monty did serve a good role for him as he was aging and getting away from the field and providing, somewhat insight and confidence in Lane. But I look forward to following Lane's career. He and I competed against each other. I was at Notre Dame as the DC. He's at SC as the DC, working for Pete Carroll. I mean, the Pete Carroll, Greg Robinson, Monte Kiffin, Rick Minner, that whole connection has never really stopped.
You mentioned Coach Kiffin going back and working for Lane Kiffin and doing things like that. Very similar setup to what you have with your son. Can you talk about what that kind of connection, what kind of relationship to be able to do? Todd and I both have sons, and it's an amazing thing to be able to do something like that and be successful at it, not just be a tag along or something like that.
Well,
To be
the good
successful
news,
at it.
Tim, is it started 20 years ago when I was in charge and I was raising him. He worked for me at Notre Dame as a 22, 23-year-old kid, like a GA intern type guy. I then worked with him again at Indiana State. I was the D coordinator. He was the secondary guy. And then when I left to go take another job, I recommended him at 26 to be the D coordinator. And the head coach initially kind of, ooh, what, you sure? I said, I'm absolutely sure. And so he took the bull by the horns and did it for 2 years. And then they went to Georgia State and did it for 2. I joined them in the last year of their stay at Georgia State. Coming out of the Eagles, I went back and worked with Jesse. This time, he's the boss, and I'm working for him. And since then, it's been that way. He's the D coordinator. He's in charge. I'm just there to support and be a sidekick and be some confidence. And we just met one-on-one yesterday as we're analyzing our first 11 games. I'm kind of in charge of the run game here in terms of first and second down. And here we are in the film room watching film. I'm addressing it with him. And then yet today we just finished a staff meeting where he capsulized everything. But it's, I've had to learn to stay in my lane, part of that, and yet be a dad at the same time, be a confident builder at the same time. But it's been a joy. I mean, he's got 3 beautiful children he's blessed me with. So I enjoy being around them. I enjoy being around him, watching him grow every day and every year. And I'm truly blessed. I mean, but it is fun. It's at times frustrating because just father-son can get cross if I get out of my lane a little bit. And but it's been a blessing. It's been fun.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time that you have taken to be with us today, especially on such short notice, to just basically hop on a call with 2 complete strangers and talk about something that happened 44 years ago. Tim, do you have anything else you want to ask?
I think everybody from NC State would like to know, was Lane as big a pain in the butt as a kid as he can be now to people? I know you have a different kind of relationship with him. We only see him in the public eye. Tell us.
I don't, I can't say I was close to Lane. I mean, I was the adult and coaching, and he was the young kid growing. And then there was a period of time where I didn't stay in touch with the Kiffins all that much until Lane became a coach at USC. He was a pain in the butt then now because he was good. And he beat us on that Reggie Bush push game. I was the D coordinator on the Bush push, and he was the OC, and we let him get away with one. And but no, he's been a great coach. He's adapted to the new age thinking of how you run a college program, and I wish him really nothing but the best. But he does come from a tremendous bloodline man in Monte Kiffin and Robin.
So just next week when you see Coach Carroll, tell him we said hello. Tell him he should have listened to you.
Should have listened.
And we'll all remember that play next week during the State Carolina game.
Well, I appreciate you guys' interest, and very, very good sharing stories with you.